Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. A school bus crashes down an embankment in the BC interior, closing a highway. And police say a pedestrian in another collision has died. Plus,
we believe that the wood was treated with a chemical. The wood is very old. That led to the smoke being produced by the fire last night to be really black and obviously very visible.
Richmond fire crews try to figure out what sparked that massive blaze that spread from an industrial building to an old railway bridge across the Fraser River. And
we just want to promote the culture and Indigenous pride.
Our legacy is that we're still here. We're speaking our language.
We mark National Indigenous Peoples Day in BC with celebrations and reconciliation.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Dan Burritt. We start with a developing situation. A school bus carrying students has crashed down an embankment in the BC interior. It happened north of Lac La Hache, and in another crash, a pedestrian has been killed. Our Janella Hamilton joins us now with more. Janella, when did this crash happen?
Dan, RCMP say around 1 o'clock this afternoon they were called to a crash involving a bus on Highway 97 at Butler Road. 11 ambulances and 7 air ambulances were sent to the scene along with firefighters and police. Mounties say more than 30 people were on the bus, including students and adults. It says numerous people have now been taken to the hospital with various injuries. We don't know how serious. But just after the bus crash, a second collision happened on the same stretch of the highway. Mounties say one person was struck and killed by a vehicle. A photo posted to Facebook appears to show a yellow school bus down an embankment along the highway. Cindy Marcotte says she was driving home to Prince George when she was caught in massive traffic delays. She later found out the crash involved school-aged children.
Well, I started to cry. I was so horrified, I didn't know what to do, and I was thinking of the parents. I thought, oh my good God. You know, I'm a mom and a grandma, and the kids, you know, it's the end of school. And with all the number of emergency vehicles arriving on the scene, I knew this was no minor incident.
Janella, what more do we know about the students involved?
We know they were in grades 6 and 7 and are from 100 Mile Elementary and Horse Lake Elementary. The superintendent of the Caribou-Chilcotin School District says the students were on their way home from a field trip to Gavin Lake.
In 100 Mile, the South Caribou Recreation Center is where parents will meet to pick up their kids. You know, obviously, at this point, our first priority is just making sure that you know, everybody, the students and staff on the bus, are taken care of. You know, most importantly right now is all of our students and staff are accounted for and being checked out medically.
Police are working with the school district to help reconnect parents with their children. Obviously, a very unnerving time for these parents. RCMP are asking people to avoid the area as the highway is expected to remain closed in both directions for at least a few more hours. We still don't know what caused the bus to crash down the embankment or what led to the crash that killed the pedestrian. We'll bring you any updates later in the newscast and tonight at 11 o'clock. Dan?
Janella Hamilton reporting for us. Janella, thanks very much. An air quality warning has now been dropped after crews put out that massive fire at an industrial site in Richmond the other night. Firefighters are now trying to figure out what sparked the fire that spread to an abandoned railway trestle. As Michelle Gassoub shows us, we're also learning more about a chemical compound that caused air quality to plunge.
The morning after a massive fire, hot spots are still smoldering, even openly burning on a railway trestle meters from the River Rock Casino, with fire crews working to put those spots out.
We'll be tackling those hot spots today and beginning the plan for developing our cause and origin investigation. We're working with the property owners and our other partners here in the city.
The fire started Thursday night around 8 p.m. It's believed to have started in this industrial area before spreading to the trestle. Once the fire hit the old railway bridge, it sent thick black smoke into the air. Richmond Fire said the wood had been treated by a wood tar preservative called creosote.
The wood is very old, and so that method of construction is quite dated as well. And so that led to the smoke being produced by the fire last night to be really black and obviously very visible when the fire was happening.
According to this report from the federal government, creosote is used in Canada as a heavy-duty wood preservative for railway ties, bridge timbers, pilings, and large-size lumber. The report says there isn't currently enough data to say whether creosote is entering the environment at a rate that could be considered harmful. That dramatic smoke was enough to trigger an air quality statement for all of Metro Vancouver. Thanks to Friday winds, that statement has been lifted. Operations at nearby YVR Airport haven't been impacted.
What we're seeing from our air quality monitoring stations is very low concentrations of fine particulate matter, which would be the clearest indicator of the smoke. And we expect now that will remain for the coming few days at least.
Firefighters battled the flames for nearly 12 hours and report no one was injured. The fire chief today confirmed this trestle that has not been in use for many years is owned by CP Rail, and multiple levels of government will now be responsible for the cleanup. That's going to include the trestle itself, the industrial area, as well as debris that is now in the water, and there is no exact timeline for just how long that cleanup could take. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Richmond.
To Kelowna now, where fire crews are on the scene of a blaze in the city's Rutland neighborhood. It started around 4:30 in the afternoon at a home on Franklin Road. Flames, as you can see, pouring out of a two-story complex that has burnt through the roof and melted one side of the building. It's not yet clear if anyone has been hurt or what sparked this fire. Someone was crying outside the home alongside a few others. Police as well as fire crews are on the scene. One person has died in a house fire in Abbotsford. Crews there say other people inside the home are in hospital now with various injuries as well. Crews were called to the home on Pineview Avenue shortly after 6 Thursday morning. Paramedics treated 6 people, 3 of them taken to hospital.
Crews arrived to find a house heavily involved with smoke and flames coming out of the rear of the house. There was reports of occupants in the building. Crews quickly performed a defensive fire attack, entered the building, and removed 6 occupants from the building.
Investigators are now trying to figure out what caused that blaze. They note there is significant damage to the home and to items inside. The Office of BC's Police Complaint Commissioner is calling its first ever public hearing into allegations of sexualized misconduct against Kieran McConnell, a Vancouver police officer. Liam Britton has more on the allegations he's facing and what might the hearing lead to.
There's going to be a public hearing over allegations a longtime Vancouver police officer and university instructor sexually harassed 7 women. 4 were his students at 2 universities and 3 were fellow VPD officers. So who is this officer? Kieran McConnell, a 33-year Vancouver police veteran, a gang expert and instructor at Kwantlen University and other schools. The Office of the Police Complaints Commissioner says the allegations are serious. In one case, a former student says he went out drinking with students, got into her cab, and wouldn't let her leave and tried to kiss her. McConnell is accused of using a power imbalance as a VPD leader and someone who could help the careers of future officers. So what could this all lead to? Well, McConnell could be demoted, suspended, or even fired from the VPD. But to be clear, he has not been charged criminally and the allegations have not been proven. And in the meantime, McConnell has been suspended by the VPD. We asked if he's still getting paid, but we've not yet heard back. Kwantlen says McConnell is an instructor, but wouldn't say more. We called McConnell, but he wouldn't talk. Hearing dates haven't been set.
Liam Britton reporting. Capilano University has closed 2 of its campuses as a safety precaution after the school says a student threatened another student with violence on Thursday. The threat was specific to CapU campus on June 21st. So the university closed both its Lonsdale and Main campuses in North Vancouver for the day. Police have been notified, and the school says there is no ongoing threat to students there. The campuses are expected to reopen tomorrow. Crews are back on site near False Creek to repair and figure out the cause and source of that broken sewer main that caused waste to flood roads in Olympic Village.
We're still in the excavation mode. We haven't got to the part of the pipe that failed. So we won't know that until we see the pipe.
Metro Vancouver says it is flushing fresh water through Hinge Park, and there is no impact to service for people and businesses in that area. And officials add environmental sampling of False Creek confirms the Dragon Boat Festival is safe to proceed this weekend. Today marks National Indigenous Peoples Day, a day to celebrate First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Canada. There are festivities taking place across the country and throughout BC, including in Surrey at the Bill Reid Amphitheatre. The CBC's Caroline Chan has been there for much of the day, taking in the festivities. Caroline, what's happening there now?
Well, right now, I think the performers behind me on the main stage are just about to finish. I wish you had been with us like maybe a minute before, because we were just dancing around. It was super exciting. The doors did open at 3 o'clock, so there's been lots of performances. There was an opening ceremony that was led by the 3 host nations, Simiamu, Katsi, and Kwantlen. And it's become quite a big day where the organizers have said that they expect to outbeat last year's attendance. So they're expecting about 12,000 to about 14,000 people. And I spoke to one of the leaders about what today meant for him.
I love watching the community come together. When we have this very large and very diverse and very different ages, different demographics, different cultures all coming to one place at one time, it's beautiful.
Caroline, this is a day for celebration, among other things. What are you hearing from other people about this day?
Well, we did go and speak to people. This has become an annual event, so a lot of people are coming back. They know that this is the place to be for National Indigenous Peoples Day. So we did ask them what this day meant for them.
It's a day to celebrate living off the land and working off the land.
Celebrating culture, diversity, from all across nations, from all nations.
It's about family being reunited. It's about community. It's about being proud of our Indigenous roots.
To recognize our Indigenous peoples and to participate and be here fully.
So as you can see, it's a day of celebration, but it's also a day of reflection.
Mm-hmm. And Caroline, this event's been going on since 3 p.m. You've been out for much of the day. What happens next? Is it slowing down or speeding up?
Oh, it's definitely going to be speeding up. There's still many more performances of musical acts, dance performances as well. We're going to hear from like some of the youth. It's a big party. There's a lot of things going on. There's also an artist hub. So people are selling their wares where everybody has to be vetted so you know that it's authentic. And also the food. You can't have a party without the food. So they have a community kitchen organized. So the organizers have said there are 3,000 pieces of bannock, 2,000 cups of chili, and a lot of hot dogs. So I've already got my bannock. It's definitely going to be a good party here.
Delicious. The CBC's Caroline Chan reporting in Surrey. Thank you so much, Caroline. Well, Indigenous Peoples Day is about celebrating Indigenous culture in all its forms. When we think of Indigenous culture, many think of traditional territories, but often overlooked on this day are urban Indigenous people who make their lives away from their traditional homes. Wamish Hamilton tells us more about why recognizing their identities is so important.
It's National Indigenous Peoples Day, which gives us a chance to honor and celebrate the culture and contributions of Indigenous people everywhere. The day is rich with displays of culture like powwows, drumming, and dancing. There's also art, spoken word, speeches, and Métis jigging. These practices can draw a direct connection to tribal homes, the places many people come from. But remember, Metro Vancouver has the 3rd largest urban Indigenous population in Canada, behind Winnipeg and Edmonton. Urban Indigenous people have their own distinct community, leaders, challenges, and accomplishments. They might not have lived here since time immemorial, as some nations here have, but they have a distinct history and legacy that stands on its own. According to longtime advocate Scott Clark, Vancouver's first urban Indigenous people arrived here after they were forced off their land and displaced from nearby villages, making their way into the city to find work. And as I have witnessed, there are many residential school survivors who were estranged from their communities and families who chose to live in the city rather than return home. It's my opinion that urban Indigenous people are living proof that assimilation failed. As their numbers grew, they developed a distinct identity, one that continues today. They sought each other out, congregating and settling mostly in what is now East Vancouver. Communities are also growing in Surrey. These connections help create thriving friendship centers, housing societies, at one time a commercial fishing association and a homemakers association, not to mention countless sports teams. They may not live in their homelands, but many remain fiercely proud of their tribal roots and maintain family connections. You don't forsake your indigeneity by being urban and Indigenous, nor do you sever your connection to your homeland by living far away. If anything, these bonds strengthen over time. On Indigenous Peoples Day, maintaining your indigeneity while living in the city is something worth celebrating. In Vancouver, I'm Wamish Hamilton.
As we mentioned, festivities, memorials, and community events are happening across this province, from Vancouver Island to the Kootenays, and we touched base with a few of them.
Welcome to the second annual National Indigenous Peoples Day Block Party.
I'm grateful that we are all able to share this time here on the unceded territory of the Squamish Nation, Tsleil-Waututh and Musqueam people.
Each territory, we all have different songs. We're not the same. We all have different languages, there's different dialects. Us as Indigenous people, we want our people to be seen, we want our voices to be heard, and this is what this day is about.
Well, for one, it's my grandmother's birthday, Manukam, and it's National Indigenous Day, so it's a day to celebrate being me, being a minority, being a First Nations person, and really it's just a great day to make sure as many people out there remember the culture. That's pretty much it. We gotta remember our culture.
It's probably the most natural place in Victoria. So I think we have to cherish this land that we're on. You're welcome to come ashore and join in the festivities. Thanks, Musqueam.
It's a very important day. It takes a day for everybody to realize, this is the land that we're on. It's a lot of people kind of forget what land they're on, and that they're on Turtle Island, and that that the first people are still here, and we're still here. We're proud. We're still doing our dances. We're still doing our ceremonies, our celebrations, and we're still proud to be here.
As summer in BC officially begins now, health experts are once again reminding you about the impacts of hot weather, especially for people working in the sun. As Saurabh Sandhu shows us, one doctor says anyone needs to take signs of heat exhaustion very seriously.
Dave Willis says his work schedule remains unchanged even on a hot day, when working outdoors can be challenging.
If you can try to find some shade, sometimes that's always good too.
Willis says on a hot day like this, he tries to keep himself hydrated.
Is important for sure.
But medical experts say merely staying hydrated may not be enough. They're asking people to have a plan to deal with the heat this summer, especially for those working outdoors.
Putting some cold compresses in that cooler for yourself to put around your neck, under your armpits to keep yourself cool, drinking a lot of water and staying hydrated.
Experts say exposure to extreme heat could lead to serious illnesses.
Your skin might be very hot and very red compared to normal. You might be very confused, and you might actually lose consciousness. So if you see any of those signs, of course, that's an emergency.
Newhouse says most of the heat-caused illness doctors see in emergency rooms are work-related.
On the extreme end of things, we can see heat illness like heat exhaustion and even heat stroke. And those are quite dangerous. And so we actually do see those in people who work outside.
However, Newhouse says heat-related illnesses can also impact those working indoors if the environment lacks proper ventilation. She says it's up to the employers to check on their workers' well-being.
Monitoring how well their workers are doing, making sure that they have break time, especially in shaded areas and areas that are a little bit cooler.
WorkSafe BC says over the last 3 years they have seen more than 240 accepted claims related to heat stress and is reminding employers to plan ahead to protect workers from extreme heat and wildfire smoke. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Surrey.
Darius Madavi joins us now with the first look at the weather. Very good reminder as it heats up, right?
Yes, absolutely. So today is probably going to be, today and tomorrow really, our hottest days here on the coast today. In the interior, probably tomorrow. Sunday temperatures start to come down pretty much across the province, although it's brief because as we get into early next week, those temperatures start to climb once again. So really good information to have. Right now, things are fairly calm. We're starting to see a little bit of precipitation over parts of the island and that cloud building in, getting closer and closer. We can see actually a little bit of the high cloud coming over Vancouver. If we zoom out to parts of the southern interior, you can see here, again, fairly calm, a little bit of cloud in a few places, but generally nothing more than those convective showers and much more calm than yesterday and especially Wednesday. And then if we come up here, this is where we had that warning earlier up in Fort Nelson. It seems like that's come down now, but you can see still a few lightning strikes happening in a few places. So it seems like that's calmed down a little bit, but still present. If we take a look at what's going to happen over the next couple days, we're going to see, again, this cloud a little bit in Vancouver. Tonight, that cloud continues to build in for what will be a fairly cloudy morning for both us and much of the island. As we continue to roll through Saturday, it becomes a mix of sun and cloud coming in and out. If we get into Sunday, it's a very similar story. Some cloud in the morning and becoming a mix of sun and cloud later in the day as some precipitation moves over parts of the island.
Okay, we'll check in later. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Have you ever wondered what your dreams mean, especially if they involve a loved one who's died? After the break, we're going to hear from a researcher who's studying this underlooked aspect of grief and how it can help people heal. Stick around. This week, we've been taking a look at the various ways people grieve and live with loss. Oftentimes, when people are experiencing grief, sleep can be hard to come by, among other things. But an under-researched aspect of grief is the dreams we get when we are experiencing those losses. To talk about what these dreams can look like, we're joined by Joshua Black. He works with the BC Centre for Palliative Care and is a grief researcher and has a podcast called Grief Dreams. Josh, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
How often do people in your research have dreams about loved ones that they've lost?
It's actually pretty common. And so just with some of the samples that we've done, 78%, 80%, 54%. So we have a lot of people are having these experiences and we just don't know much about them, but they are impacting the grief journey.
Are they having them soon after the person that they've lost dies, or is it years later? What's the timeline?
Yeah, usually it's soon after, but people can have this delayed reaction where the dreams happen maybe a year or two after, and it can be very comforting for a lot of people.
How do the dreams usually manifest, according to the people you've talked to? Positive, negative?
Yeah, usually they're very positive for people, and they're very memorable for them, because as you can only imagine, this is like the next time you're seeing the deceased person, and a lot of times there's so much love within that imagery that it just helps people as they move forward with grief.
If there is a moment where somebody has a traumatic or upsetting dream about someone that they've lost, does that indicate anything?
Yeah, so if you're having these negative dreams of the deceased, one of the things it does represent is unresolved feelings of grief, maybe some guilt or anger that's there, and also trauma is a part of that, and that's some of the stuff that we're finding through the research.
And do you have a guide or suggestions for how people may interpret those dreams and what they should do, if anything, about them?
Yeah, well, I think it's just talking about them is the first step with anything, because a lot of times they're hidden. And so if they're having negative dreams, there's different places you can go and people you can talk to sort of help really understand them. Because there's a lot of great information within dreams that really could help us understand where we are in the grieving process. But also, if culturally, a lot of cultures really see these dreams differently and how they interpret them are going to be different. So it's always the dreamer's job to interpret it the way they need to.
And we appreciate your time. Are there one or two anecdotes you'd say that stand out from people who've had these experiences?
The power of love. And these dreams just really focus on really the love that is still present within people as they're going through this traumatic journey. But that love, it seems to be the healing part that you see across cultures and helping people move through loss.
Joshua Black, we appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Hate-related charges have now been laid against 2 people after one Ottawa family was the victim of anti-Asian harassment. More on what happened after this. Earlier this week, we told you about an Ottawa family getting harassed by their neighbors. Now, Ottawa police have laid hate-related charges against 2 people. The man and woman were caught on video throwing eggs at a neighbor's home and making anti-Asian remarks. Nicole Williams has the latest.
I hate Asians.
This is the video that caught the attention of many Canadians, causing neighbors and politicians alike to condemn the pair for their actions. The Asian woman who lives in the targeted home told CBC the egg-throwing incident was not a one-off. She says her family of Korean heritage has endured 2 years of noise and harassment from their next-door neighbors. Today, police announcing they've charged the 2 for what it calls hate-motivated vandalism. 46-year-old Jamie Darlene Quigley and 36-year-old Matthew Galippo now face charges of mischief or causing damage to property and harassment by threatening another person.
I'm going to leave my details here. And
The offenses come after CBC revealed the 2 tenants have been the subject of more than 90 bylaw complaints since 2023. Today, a sense of relief on this suburban street.
There's a line and it was definitely crossed. And I guess they just took it too far.
Because I'm Asian, what if they like to attack? I have young kids around, so what if they do something for my family? So I try not to go near them.
If it wasn't on the media, the police would never charge them, or if there wasn't any security camera footages or anything.
The woman whose house was egged has told us this ongoing saga has caused her family unimaginable pain, describing her children as sleep deprived and without a peaceful environment, saying this has all led to anxiety and a need for medication for the first time in her life. It's why she reached out to police, bylaw, and community leaders for help. In a statement, the Korean embassy in Ottawa announced, quote, hate and racism have no place in Canada, which values inclusion and diversity as its greatest sources of strength. Ottawa police say they're fully aware of the serious impact of such hate crimes and are now reaching out to Asian communities to provide support. Those who live in the neighborhood hope the criminal charges will put an end to the recent disturbances. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
A delegation of Inuit from Nunavut and Nunavik are in Quebec City this week. They're honoring loved ones who were sent south to be treated for tuberculosis and never returned home. As Juanita Taylor explains, there's hope a new monument will help bring closure for the harm caused decades ago.
Here at the Mount Herman Cemetery in Quebec City, it is believed more than 50 Inuit are buried, sent here decades ago to get treatment for tuberculosis at the Parks of Art Hospital, a former sanatorium in Quebec City. Some never made it home. Many are buried here in unmarked graves. Today, the families of those who died witnessed the unveiling of this monument. Their loved ones' names are etched into stone.
It's been a healing journey for me, for myself and my family, and I'm so happy I'm here doing the ceremony for the family that never made it home.
In Quebec City, the sanatorium received Inuit patients for nearly 3 decades, starting in the 1940s. The CD Howe, a medical ship, traveled to Inuit communities offering checkups and medical procedures. Anyone suspected to have TB was brought south to sanatoriums scattered across the country. Many never said goodbye to their families. Some stayed at the sanatorium for years. Inuit organizations are still trying to get the full number of how many Inuit were impacted.
We decided to build that monument so that the family members will know they're here. We're making sure that the family members know and the souls of these persons are visited.
A pointed moment, setting foot on the dock where their loved ones arrived by ship, from infants to parents who were forced to leave their own children behind. Mary Tukdoljuk is from Nauyat. She's here in Quebec City for her late father. This advocate wants Canadians to learn about this dark history.
Experiments were done also on these patients, and loved ones that never returned, no communication between them and their families back home. So it has caused a lot of trauma. I feel like it's really important that these stories are heard.
The families that traveled so far to be here will continue to learn more about what their loved ones went through. The hope is that this monument will mean they will never be forgotten and the history of what Inuit experienced. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Quebec City.
CBC's Indigenous unit is highlighting the resilience and ingenuity of the trailblazers that helped shape this country with a special project called FIRST. You can find it at cbc.ca/Indigenous. Among those trailblazers are the Indigenous women who patented and profited from an invention that parents will know very well, the Jolly Jumper. Megan Fiddler, senior producer with our Indigenous unit, tells us the story of Suzanne Olivia Poole.
As a little Ojibwe baby, I was carried around in a tikanoggin, much like this one that I used to use when I was little. As you can see, it has a wooden backboard, it has a little nest that you tie your baby into, and it also has this leather strap. It goes around your shoulders so you can free up your hands and do what you need to do.
Here's the story behind the Ojibwe woman who invented the first Jolly Jumper. It starts in White Earth Reservation in Minnesota, where their cradle boards were a little different. When women needed to work, they would hang what they called a papoose on a tree. And every once in a while, they'd pull on the tree limb to make the baby bounce. So along comes Susan Olivia Poole, aka Olivia. She took that papoose and updated it to 1910 standards for her son, Joseph. She used a cloth diaper to make a harness. She got a blacksmith to create a soft action steel spring, and she used an axe handle as a spreader bar, thus creating, according to the company, the very first Jolly Jumper. 32 years later, Poole started making them again for her grandkids. Then, 6 years after that, the first Jolly Jumper is in mass production. By 1957, Olivia and Joseph have a patent for it. Poole Manufacturing makes them out of BC. So while the Poole family sold the business sometime in the 60s, the company stayed pretty close to Olivia's original design. And it's still made in Canada, in Mississauga. For CBC Indigenous, I'm Megan Fiddler.
After the break, we take a closer look at Edmonton Oilers captain Connor McDavid and why he's considered one of the greatest players ever. And there's a live shot of crowds gathered outside Rogers Place at Edmonton as the Oilers take on the Panthers. Brace yourself for a spoiler alert. The score? 2-0 Oilers with just under 12 minutes left in the second period. A very happy crowd waiting for a comeback. We'll be back. In a tradition that dates back thousands of years, crowds gathered to greet the sun and welcome the summer solstice at Stonehenge. The prehistoric circle of megalithic stones draws revelers for both the shortest and longest days of the year. One estimate put this morning's crowd at 15,000. The popular landmark on Salisbury Plain aligns with the sunrise on the first day of summer and the sunset on the first day of winter, conveniently. Stonehenge is believed to be about 5,000 years old and is thought to have been originally a burial ground. It's the place to be in the summer solstice, isn't it, Darius Badavi?
It is.
Have you ever
Yes,
been?
One of them. Oh, no, I have not.
Okay.
There we go.
Neither have I.
Yeah, it's super cool, though. Although, actually, there's another rock formation in Egypt that predates Stonehenge by 1,000 years and is also set up to line up with the solstice, because that indicated the beginning of the flooding season of the Nile. So it was
there
really
you go.
practical information to have.
Absolutely. Little
It's
fun
very
fact.
cool. Yeah. So now that we're in summer, you can see North Pole pointing as much towards the sun as it ever does. Very exciting stuff. The days are only getting shorter from here, but also warmer. So, you know, a little bit of a trade-off. So we're in summer. It's great. Temperatures are warming up. It should be a nice weekend for most people across the province, at least tomorrow. Now, I should mention, before I mentioned that this warning had come down, turns out that was just the graphic system not showing it. So just keep in mind, up at Fort Nelson, still seeing that severe weather, severe thunderstorm watch. Now, fire danger across the board also looks more like summer. You can see that the fire danger, moderate to high fire danger, is spread down throughout much of the province. This is the highest fire danger we've seen across BC in a very long time. So tomorrow, expect this to stay up because of the warm temperatures in the interior. But then as we have a low pressure system come in, it should come back down a little bit. So you can see over the next few days, this low pressure system comes in. We see a trough of low pressure that brings some rain to parts of the province, drops temperatures on Sunday. That moves out. We have high pressure build back in briefly, and then potentially another low pressure system coming in on Wednesday. This part is not guaranteed yet. It could just stay sunny, but it could also see cloud building in mid next week. So be aware of that. In terms of those temperatures, what does it mean? Well, they're coming up tomorrow. They're coming back down on Sunday in many places. And then Monday, probably staying fairly stagnant. So pretty similar. Tuesday, we may see temperatures come up a little bit more or drop a bit depending on what happens with that low pressure system. Now, I also want to show this because it's a really cool new graphic that I have. It's called the Climate Shift Index. And what this shows is the likelihood of those temperatures, the temperatures that we're seeing at the time, the high temperatures, in our current climate compared to a climate without climate change. And so you can see for much of BC, these really high temperatures we're seeing, at least 5 times more likely because of climate change. So that is a really cool graphic that we can take a look at any time, and it'll show you what's happening. So tomorrow, as temperatures drop a little bit in some places, we'll see again some of those that changing, and then as we get into those cooler temperatures, we see that they're less likely now. Now, in terms of tomorrow across the province, fairly calm, a few storms in the central interior. Other than that, most people seeing some sunshine, maybe a little bit of cloud building in. And here in Vancouver, Dan, nothing but sunshine in the next few days, maybe a little bit of rain on Sunday. But overall, it's looking like summer.
It is. And as we mentioned, it is the day for we'll get the coordination right one day. It's Fun Fact Friday, and the first day of summer, a great time to go for a swim. You're here to tell us about an animal that doesn't swim.
Yes, can't swim, in fact. But you've probably seen them cooling off in the water anyway. We're talking hippos. And I learned this morning watching a BBC documentary, and I was shocked because you always see hippos being in the water.
Indeed.
But in fact, they cannot swim. Their bones are too dense. They are too large. But what happens is they walk on the bottom of the riverbed. So they can hold their breath for 5 to 7 minutes. They can even sleep underwater. They have a reflex that while they're asleep, lets them pop their head up to take a breath and then float back down while they're still asleep. But yeah, if you pushed a hippo off a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean, it would sink right to the bottom. Please don't do that. That's a bad idea. But it's still terrifying. They can gallop on the bottom of the riverbed on the floor, and they are so fast. The first time I watched the documentary, I was watching it in 2 times speed, and I forgot that for a second, and they seemed to be moving impossibly fast.
Yeah.
And that was true. But even when I made it normal speed, still incredibly fast. Don't mess with a hippo. They are terrifying.
Yes, indeed. Yes, such a friendly animal, said no one ever. Very fun fact. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, Edmonton Oilers captain Connor McDavid is having such a dominant performance these Stanley Cup playoffs. Even if the Oilers lose, he's still considered a favorite to win the Conn Smythe Trophy for most valuable player in the playoffs. Tonight, Aaron Collins takes a closer look at the hockey superstar and why he's considered one of the greatest ever.
McDavid stayed on side. Just another day at the office for Connor McDavid. But this assist, special. The 34th of this postseason, breaking a record held by Wayne Gretzky. Part of a growing legacy, even McDavid grudgingly acknowledges.
Obviously not the focus, with where we're at, but, not lost on me, what he means to the game.
Not the focus, but hard to ignore. Gretzky's records long thought to be unassailable, but as McDavid surpasses some of the great one's totals, a conversation long thought unthinkable is ramping up.
We could be watching the best ever to play hockey.
Hockey insiders who've watched both players caught up in the debate. What makes Connor McDavid so good?
It's that he can do anything. His speed is unbelievable. He can go around people. He can go through people. He can hold up and suddenly deceive you. He's just the all-around package, and I've never seen a guy like that.
Of course, McDavid, good as he is, still has a mountain to climb to catch Gretzky. The great one scored nearly 3,000 points in his career. McDavid's yet to hit 1,000. Still, the debate over McDavid and the great one alive among Oilers fans.
He means like everything, basically.
Just a legend. Like, he is just godlike. He's phenomenal.
Ooh, he's not quite Gretzky yet, but I think he's right below.
I think he's getting up there. He's close to number one. He's getting close to Gretzky-esque.
McDavid's coach, a believer.
Wants to win, wants to be the best. So between his love and passion, I think that just allows him to rise up.
Of course, there's another area McDavid trails the great one. Gretzky led the Oilers to 4 Stanley Cups, something McDavid hasn't done, at least not yet. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
For this National Indigenous Peoples Day, one artist's work was chosen for this year's celebratory flag. You're going to find her design, Grandmother Moon, flying at Vancouver City Hall. We will catch up with her after this.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Stream your favorite CBC dramas or comedies 24/7 on demand on the CBC Gem app. Plus, you can live stream CBC Vancouver News. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
National Indigenous Peoples Day is a chance to celebrate and reflect. And that's just what artist Melanie Gleason-Lyle of the Point family was able to do.
Her artwork was selected for this year's celebratory flag, and you can find that design called Grandmother Moon flying at Vancouver City Hall. Our Lisa Christensen met up with the artist on her traditional territory.
Hi, my name is Melanie. I am from Musqueam, Snetnawas, and Lyakton. My ancestral name comes from my father, late Mervyn Point, Semeltanat.
And where are we sitting?
We are on the beautiful Statlow, the river of Musqueam people of the river crest.
So now it is National Indigenous Peoples Day. What does that day mean to you?
I think it's really important that we recognize the First Peoples of this country and our heritage and our rich culture, and also all the atrocities that's happened, and tell the truth and know the full history of our country and what it was based on.
And one of the other reasons we're talking today is because you've created this piece of art that is actually the imagery for this National Indigenous Peoples Day, that it's on flags, it's on t-shirts. Now tell us about Grandmother Moon.
Grandmother Moon. So this is in honor of my sister, late Kat Norris. She was a significant Indigenous matriarch of Vancouver downtown east side, and East Vancouver. So that represents Kat in the middle, and the wolves represent the community that surrounded her, and all the lives that she touched, whether it be through different facets of her life. She's touched so many members of the community. And then this is my Salish eye, which represents the ancestors and their teachings and their legacy. So they surround us all the time.
Can you talk more about Kat?
Kat was an amazing woman who really supported Indigenous rights, Indigenous people on the margins. She did so much work in the downtown east side with Indigenous youth at risk, and that's actually when I met her. She was working with youth at risk. She was working with single moms. She was a single mom. She helped advocate for people that didn't have a voice. She helped get a water fountain in Grandview Park for the homeless because someone had died that year. And she always did an amazing thing with the community. She had such a heart for community, and people just surrounded her and encompassed her and walked the journey with her. Yeah, she was powerful.
Now, you said something quite surprising to me when we were chatting earlier, which is that you've only very recently started making art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to work for a company, so that's how I started writing the children's books, and I loved doing that. And then I actually wanted to learn more about our Coast Salish art form. My auntie Susan Point, is a key figure that I look up to in my art, and so I just started designing and started throwing stuff out there and figuring it out. And this is my latest design, and I think I like it the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And what does it feel like seeing it on the flags and knowing it's, something to represent this important day?
I love that Kat's represented in it because she did so much for the city of Vancouver. I love that we're supporting the people in the downtown east side by giving away free shirts to people in honor of Kat, but in honor of National Indigenous Peoples Days, just to that we're seen, that people recognize what this month entails, that people continue to learn what reconciliation is and what truth-telling is, and listening to our stories. I think we've always had a voice, it's just whether people are willing to listen.
When you are creating art, what are you feeling? What's happening?
It's part of my story of coming back and finding my family, telling our stories through our the history and our folklore. I mean, I don't think it's folklore personally, but there's stories of wolves in the Musqueam origin stories. There's stories of Sasquatch. There's different things that I love hearing and just sitting with the elders to learn those stories.
When you look at this image, Grandmother Moon, what are you feeling? What are you thinking when you look at it?
I love making this design. In our cultural ways, we know that our ancestors are always watching over us. And so a cat being a grandmother and a matriarch of the city, I think that she would be recognized as a grandmother, and also with her grandchildren as well. But so I think she's always watching down over us, and I think it's important, and to know that community is still surrounding her, even though she's not here anymore, that people are still honoring her legacy and what she's left to our community.
If you told me she had not been creating art her whole life, I would not have believed you.
Unbelievable designs, and she's right about Kat Norris. Interviewed her a few times. Force of nature for sure.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
And Janella Hamilton will have your next local news set for 11 o'clock right after the National. Good night. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe.